Hi, welcome to Movie Review Mom. And if this is the very first time you've discovered my YouTube channel, yay, you found me. I'm so glad you're here. I hope you like what you see and hear and that you come back, and I hope you subscribe. And if you click on that little bell icon below, you'll be notified every time I upload new movie reviews or trailer reactions or documentary evaluations. I don't know, I just call it a movie review. So I do all of those things, and my goal is to give you the heads up so that you can make the best decision for you and your family as to whether or not you want to spend time or money or both watching a specific movie. So today, that specific movie that I'm evaluating or reviewing today is called Reminiscence, not to be confused with the 2018 movie of the same name. Sometimes I wonder, why do these directors make movies with the same names? Surely they could think of a different name. However, in the case of this movie, it actually is a good name. So this movie is available now in theaters and on HBO Max. It's rated PG-13 and it's an hour and 56 minutes. So I'm going to give you an overview in a nutshell. I'll point out things I liked and didn't like, offer tips for parents, themes worth talking about, and even some recommendations for other movies that I think you might also like if you like this one, or that you might like even better. All right, let's dive in. In a nutshell, this movie had me at Hugh Jackman and Rebecca Ferguson. I loved them both, and together in the movie The Greatest Showman. I just loved that movie to begin with. But when I saw that they were going to be paired up again, I was like, ooh, yes. So Nick Bannister is played by Hugh Jackman, and he's a private investigator of the mind. He navigates the alluring world of the past when his own life is changed by a new client, May, played by Rebecca Ferguson. A simple case becomes an obsession after she disappears, and he fights to learn the truth about her. So this dramatic mystery is directed by Lisa Joy, who happens to be the sister-in-law of the famous director Christopher Nolan. She's married to Christopher Nolan's brother. So that's awesome. This is her debut feature film after directing the popular HBO show Westworld. Now, I never, unfortunately, got into that TV show, partly because I don't have the time. I think I watched maybe the first 20 minutes of the first episode, and it just didn't grab me. And I know it has huge fans, but I've also heard that there are some problems with that show, some of the episodes, some of the directing, and I think some of those problems have carried into this film. But before I get into all of that, let me tell you about some of the things I really liked about this movie. As I mentioned, I adore Hugh Jackman and will pretty much watch anything that he's in. He's so talented, handsome, and charming. I just love him. His fans will also be thrilled to see him shirtless quite a few times in this film. He gives a good performance, and I think he does a really good job, although he may not be perfectly cast for this film noir role. I'll talk more about that in a minute. Rebecca Ferguson is also so beautiful and charming. I also love her paired with Tom Cruise in the Mission Impossible movies. But I won't give you any spoilers about those. If you haven't seen those, you should see those. They're really good. Anyway, we all fell in love with Rebecca Ferguson in The Greatest Showman, especially when she sang, only to learn that her voice was actually dubbed by American Idol contestant Lauren Allred, who has a stunning voice. And I can't believe she didn't win that season, because when I heard that voice in The Greatest Showman, I was just, my mouth dropped and I thought, who is that? Is Rebecca the one singing that? Because it was so beautiful. Anyway, in this movie, we actually do get to hear the real singing voice of Rebecca Ferguson, which is really fun just to hear her voice. Unfortunately, it's nowhere near the level of Lauren Allred's voice, but good for Rebecca Ferguson for giving it a shot. And she mentioned in something that I had read recently that she was scared, but that she was also open to trying new things. And so she sings in the movie. So Thandie Newton is such a likable actress, and I'm not sure how to pronounce her name correctly because I've also seen it pronounced other ways, Thandie Wen. But anyway, she's really cute. Also in a Mission Impossible movie many years ago, just lovely. But I'll talk more about her in a minute as well. The scenes that are shown at the very beginning of the film, I thought were fascinating. I was all in. You see these cityscapes and they're flooded and there are lights turned on in the buildings and you're like, wait, what is this? What's happening? I wanted to learn more about what happened to make those images actually occur. So very good world building with some very cool visual effects. However, I'm going to talk about that some more in just a minute on the things that I didn't like. Beautiful cinematography and some really great shots. And as far as the story goes, there were some fun twists, and I'm always a sucker for twists. I like that. All right. So now let me tell you about some of the things that I didn't like, which are similar to the things that I like. First of all, the biggest problem is the screenplay itself. I think it just stalls in an attempt at kind of an apocalyptic film noir. It falls far short of its potential. And in terms of storytelling, it's a bit confusing and even boring at the same time. The pacing is slow, which is problematic. And even the action sequences are just not that good. Nothing we haven't really seen before. There is an underwater scene, but we've seen underwater fighting. It seemed like it was serviceable, but nothing where you would leave the movie going, whoa, I can't wait to see that scene again. So that's bad. So there are some insightful lines, and I think the movie actually tries very hard to be profound and insightful. And yet some of the dialogue is very uninspiring. Sadly, this movie ultimately is going to be very forgettable, I think. Now, when it comes to the world building that I originally thought was super cool, as I thought about it and continued to watch the scenes and how daily life was supposed to take place in this apocalyptic type of setting, I wondered, wait a minute, for example, how could the electricity work in the buildings if much of the buildings were underwater? How does that work? And people seem to be going about their busy work days. And I'm like, well, what would they be doing for a living? And how are they doing that? And where are they getting the money? And like, this world has been destroyed. So how is this daily life actually continuing? And I wanted more insights onto that. So I felt like the world building wasn't completely thought out. Many of the parts of the dystopian world just didn't quite make sense. And as much as I love the talented cast, and I did, some of them I didn't think were ideal choices for the roles. For example, I mentioned I really liked Thandie Newton, but we're supposed to believe that she was this tough military warrior during this last recent war, that she has this big reputation, even though she is a very petite woman and she's very feminine. And I'm not saying feminine women can't be in the military. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying she's very petite, didn't look super strong. And then she also plays this sort of a love interest role / best friend. And I don't know. I'm not sure who I would have placed instead. It just didn't quite work for me. And it's also really hard to get invested in some of these characters, partly because the storyline is just kind of boring and it just kind of goes on. And they weren't super charismatic characters, maybe. And again, part of it has to do with the slow pacing as well. So all of that was just a little bit disappointing. Let me give you some tips for parents. First of all, kids are going to be bored. And as I mentioned, so will many adults. You see people in their bathing suits or in their underwear because they've got to get into this tank where they have electrodes put on while they're in water. And again, I'm like, do we really want electricity and water happening at the same time? I think they were trying to go with a visual difference, something that looked different. But again, I'm like, are these people going to get electrocuted? There is some violence. There is profanity. People die. There's hand-to-hand combat, guns and other weapons, premarital relations, mostly clothes, but there's some action going on that you see that's inappropriate for children. And then one of the themes is, of course, love in its different forms. Other themes are judging others, living in the past versus living in the present, yearning and what we do to fill that yearning in our hearts. Military brotherhood is sort of mentioned, self-deception. And then here's a line, I think, that really sums up the theme of the movie. This is spoken by Nick Bannister, who's played by Hugh Jackman. And he says, we're all haunted by something. And it's that haunting, that yearning that propels this character and provides motivation for this character to keep searching for something or someone. So I always write down funny lines and interesting lines while I'm watching the movie. So basically I can tell you kind of what to expect from the feel and the flavor of the movie. So one of the lines is early on in the movie, and Tandy Newton says, "You're late." And she's speaking to Hugh Jackman's character, and he runs this facility where you can go back in time. And he says, late is a construct of linear time, and we don't believe in that, which is true. Anyway, I just kind of thought that was cute and funny, and also sets the stage for this new type of technology that does allow you to go back in time. And then Hugh Jackman also plays the role of narrator, you know, looking back on the great wisdom that he has gained during the course of the events that happened in the movie. And so he says a lot of wise things. And so one of the first things that he does say at the beginning, which is repeated at the end, is the past can haunt a man. That's what they say. The past is just a series of moments, each one perfect, complete, a bead on the necklace of time. Now, I've also read other reviews from other reviewers who just say, that is just a lame line. I liked it. I wrote it down. But again, it's kind of forcing that great wisdom, and it feels a little forced. And then another line that he says is, if there's a ghost to be found, it's us. We haunt the past. And I thought that that was actually insightful and kind of interesting because, you know, the past is done and we're the ones that go back looking for it and drumming up the old messages that we tell ourselves or trying to relive what we've done in the past. And ultimately, while the message doesn't completely share this thought, I personally think that what we need to do is learn from the past and move forward, not spend so much time in the past rehashing things or wishing things were different, because who you are now is because of what you learned in the past. So don't begrudge it. Don't hate the past. Accept who you are now, and that who you are is because of all of the trials, the challenges, the mistakes, and all of that. All right, enough of that little lecture. So you want to know what movie review mom grade I'm giving this film? A C. It had a lot of room for improvement, but there were some pieces that I really did enjoy. All right, but before you go, let me give you some recommendations for just a couple of other movies that I think you'll also enjoy that are sort of similar in different ways. The first one that came to my mind was Blade Runner, where there's a dystopian type of a world and a yearning, a searching, and some lessons learned and some narration, and it kind of feels like a futuristic film noir. And then another movie I thought of was Inception, where there are layers of meanings and, of course, playing with time and ability and that kind of thing. I think both of those movies are much, much better than this one. But if you do choose to watch this movie, I hope you enjoy it and you get something out of it. And I will catch you in the next movie review. And until then, bye for now.